everyone, it's Tasha Danvers here, two-time Olympian and Olympic bronze medalist, and you are listening or watching another episode of Global Sports Channel Sports Personality Spotlight. I have a former elite distance athlete today, but we're not just talking sports today. We got something else up our sleeves, guys. I want you to have a warm welcome, even though we can't hear you. We're feeling it in our hearts for James Mayo. James, welcome to the show. How is you?
I am really good, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on. And we'll give ourselves a quick cheer to
There
say
we
hello to
go.
everyone and
Round of
appreciate
applause.
round of applause, as you say.
You know what I have to say, James? Of all the people I've had on, I think you have the best camera setting, the best headphones, the best sound quality. So if nothing else, you've got an award for that.
And the dog barking in the
pet.
background, just to sort of make himself aware that sort of, hey, Dad's on TV. Make sure we're all known.
He was like, he's not the only famous guy over here. So I love it. So I feel a little familiarity with that accent of yours, Sir Mayo. Where are you from?
Los Angeles.
I knew it. I knew it.
No,
I always tell everyone I'm from Kansas.
Oh, Dorothy. So I lived in, I was born and brought up in England, I suppose. Yorkshire was where I was born. I ran for West Mids and sort of ran for Cannock and Stafford. And then, but I left UK, I suppose, when I was about 21. I was in the army for several years and obviously running. Not as fast as your good speedy self, but had an awful lot of fun running for England and with my brother and myself, and on the circuit. Those were the days. So ran, and then after that, I've been fortunate: Singapore, Hong Kong, India, Canada, America, and now firmly settled in sunny Scottsdale.
Scottsdale. Well, listen, don't worry about not being as fast, because trust me, I never ran as far as you. That is for sure. So you've been jet setting around the world for the last, you said 22, you're probably only 5 years older now. You've been jet setting around the world, Singapore. How do you settle in Arizona? Is this where you're permanently living now?
It is for the foreseeable future. So
right.
Let's see. I mean, I think
as settled as James Mayo can ever be.
Yeah, this is my 27th location of home. So, you say you're from Kansas. I'm totally lost from where my Dorothy is.
Wherever you lay your hat, that's your home.
That it is. So, I mean, we ended up here. My wife and better half is just finishing a fellowship in gastroenterology and liver transplants, and will be starting here at the Mayo Clinic in a couple of months' time. So the tongue-in-cheek piece is she's a Dr. Mayo at the Mayo. So that's a lot.
I was about to say, hang on a minute. Who established this? Like, have you been around that long?
I wish I did.
I know, right?
I'd be very old.
So tell us a little bit about your sporting journey. How did it all begin? What was the process of getting into sports? And you did pretty well. It's not easy to go into the international field. A lot of athletes make it look easy, but as you well know, being an international athlete and competing for your country is something that takes a lot. So tell us a bit about your journey with distance.
Yeah. So I do wish I was a sprinter in some ways. We're always envious of you, crew, in terms of you go down to the track, you chat, you talk, you dance, you sort of do a bit of warm up, and then you do about 10 minutes worth of work, and then you sort of chill, chat, warm down, and we're there just traveling around loops around the track.
Excuse me, you're not supposed to tell all our sprinters' secrets. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to cut you off.
So I apologize for that. So my uncle was we got into it. My family comes from a running background. My uncle was an Olympic silver medalist from Tokyo in '64, was a 400-meter runner, and then went into television sort of after that, a guy called Adrian Metcalf. And my mum and dad, with my brother and myself, made us swim first. I think it was a canny way of saying, look, we know you will probably end up running, but if we give you a sport where you just look at a black line on the bottom of a pool at 4 a.m., we're going to make sure you enjoy running. So we started as swimmers. And then once we've had enough of that or could do it on ourselves, then we jumped into the world of distance running. And my brother focused on the 1500. I focused on the 800. Probably hindsight, I wish I'd have done the 400. I loved the sort of the speed of it.
Yeah.
But that said, 800 was a super sport. It was one of those where you sort of leave your lungs behind with 200 meters to go. You pick up the fridge and somebody else's fridge and hope that your legs just about take you across the line. And time wise, we took it sort of slowly. We always didn't believe in the mass mileage where lots of sort of distance runners do. And, things sort of progressed and, got to run for my country and worked with an agent called Andy Norman back in the day. And those
I
people that are
remember
old
good
enough
old
will
Andy.
remember him.
Yeah.
So he sort of took me under his wing and, I did a lot of pacemaking to sort of earn my stripes and also helped out with the sort of the agency side with him. So I learnt a lot of the commercial side of athletics, which was just a rock and roll sport back in the day. And obviously the running sort of progressed. I then joined the army. My family comes from a sort of a background of military. My father was in the Air Force, father's father was in the army, and so on and so forth. So it's sort of like it was written in the cards that one would join the army as a jolly good chap.
Right.
So I joined the Cheshire Regiment, which was known for its athletics, but also, I loved the army life, and I was very fortunate to serve my country and meet a cracking bunch of lads and lasses, and that probably curtailed going as far as I could in sport. But that said, I've got zero regrets because what I learned from the army and what I learned from professional athletes,
Right.
um, you have such a foundation in life. So that sort of continued whilst I ran during my time in the army, and I was okay. Obviously, Kelly Holmes is an army veteran, and she crushed it all over the shop in terms of her speedy sportage. But it was, I got the most out of it. And when I left, I decided to go on holiday to Singapore, actually. And as one does, and I didn't know what I was going to do when I left the army and ended up as the national endurance coach for Singapore Athletics. So that was brilliant
Wow.
because I got to sort of put into practice what I was doing with the army, what I was doing with my own running, and help sort of set up the Singapore Marathon. And in terms of the coaching side of it, not the actual setting up the marathon itself, that's definitely not my bag. And I was also fortunate enough to get drunk with the head of sports news at ESPN Star Sports and said, I could do that job. And he said, no, you can't. And I said, probably not. But anyway, I'll do it. So I worked for free for a couple of months. And then started writing for ESPN Star, and I was fortunate enough to, towards the end of my time there, host Sports Center on numerous occasions on the weekends, and then go out to Athens where I was hosting, doing all this sort of the updates for ESPN Star over there. So I had whilst I've got a face for radio, I had an opportunity to put myself firmly in front of the camera and cause chaos. And it was a joyous, riotous experience. And also the coaching was really good fun. And then that led to a time in the corporate world, which one would say is boring, but you learn I suppose you get your spurs in that sort of side. And I learned the art of sales. I learned the art of negotiation. I was fortunate enough to manage teams and do that sort of stuff. And halfway through that time, when I ended up in America after I'd met my wife, we were sort of discussing along with my brother. Tom and I had suffered dehydration. Tom collapsed at the World Championships in South Africa with dehydration. And the sports drinks are too sugary. The oral rehydration. So if you're in America, it's Pedialyte. If you're in the UK, it's Dioralyte. And I'm sure we've all mixed our own little concoctions of stuff to stop us cramping, to help hydrate us better. You felt like a witch's broth by the time you got to the start line. And if you'd overdone it with certain ingredients, you probably weren't making it to the start line in time. And my wife had treated patients in Mexico where she sort of grew up and then started doing a medicine degree or qualifications and then her surgery residency with an oral rehydration solution that the World Health Organization designed about 50 years ago to treat diarrhea and vomiting. Think of it as basically a super speedy electrolyte replacement, Dioralyte or Pedialyte on steroids. And the downside of it still had a load of sugar, and it also tasted like death. And as a result, halfway, we were 6 hours in this winery. as ex-athletes, as we're all not that well known for our drinking capability as much as we like to think it. We'd sort of come up with the idea that, hey, the world needs a better hydration solution and something that does exactly as it says on the tin. So we'd come up with the name SOS. We'd come up with the fact that we wanted to design a better for you sports drink. And the adventures of SOS began, and this is where we are today.
I love that. I want to go back a bit just to touch a little bit on the transition, because I think there's a lot of value in your experience that you could pass on to other people who are going through that, because you not only had one transition, which was from sports to the real world, quote unquote, you also had the transition from the army. And let's be fair, a lot of athletes don't manage that well, or don't cope with that well, I should say. So a lot go into depression, a lot commit suicide just transitioning from sport. What do you think has been the key to being so successful transitioning, maybe drunk at the bar, putting yourself out there? What's been the key to doing that so successfully?
I think there's a couple of things. First of all, you have to know when to retire.
Hello.
And I think that's a really key part of life. And to be honest, we've all screwed that up. I'm not saying you have, you probably did it right. But most of us, when we're going through sport, there's always one more year. There's always one more season. There's always that PB I can go and get. But sometimes, it's a bit like Rosberg in the Formula One side of life. Whether he retired because he wanted to or had to or was forced to, I have no idea. But the fact is, he got his world championship, he walked away, and he was done. I realized I was never going to make the Olympics. I was happy with that. I wasn't quite good enough, but I'd learned so much, and I realized that the longer I left not running, the longer I left that transition, the harder it was going to be to get into, let's call it, the real world. And I think the biggest piece of advice after that is, whatever sport you've done, I'm not going to swear, but I almost need to swear. It's like, you're blooming brilliant at what you do. And because you're blooming brilliant at what you do, there's so many cross-transferable skills. Yes, most of the population haven't got a clue what they are. But ultimately, if you think of it, if you've had the nous, the balls, the energy, the effort to get up every single day and train, right, when you're injured, you understand that you've got to adapt, to improvise, to overcome. When you're facing a bad moment, you have more losses than you have wins. And yes, you celebrate, a podium or whatever, or a PB, but you've had to run to lose more than you run or jump or swim or ski or football or kick or however you do it. You lose more than you win. In business and in life, we lose more than we win. I mean, most of the world, as much as I'm the most positive person I feasibly can be, this world's all about no.
Right.
And then you get a little yes, and it's like, I've got a yes. It's amazing. And what was that little yes? It means nothing. And then as soon as you've got that yes, you're back to the start, and then you go again. It's just like running laps of a 10K. And thank God I wasn't a 10K indoor runner, because they do way more laps than is needed.
Way too many.
It's like, I'm dizzy. So it was the transition from sport to military was, obviously I was still doing the sport. The hardest bit came when I left the army, and I was still sort of running, but not running properly. And I'd had this family environment in the military. And then you literally, the military is very good in UK about positioning you on your feet, but you don't get that full understanding that all of a sudden there isn't a mess and your mates to go back to who are all in the same pot. And it's the same with training. You're no longer going down the track, or if you go down the track, you're sort of like, me as a bloke, I'm the old bloke down the track. So what are you doing down the track? It's like, I've got my old slow spikes. I haven't got these new trendy fast spikes. It's sort of like, so you just have to, and I get the mental thing. Funnily enough, I actually got pre-diabetic about 4 years ago. And there's a fair number of us athletes that happen to that because we're so used to the crap of sports drinks and the sugar that we continue that. And that was probably my lowest moment mentally. But again, I think you can change your mental sort of attitude a little bit. And obviously I'm not taking anything away from those with, because it's a serious problem, and it's something that we all have to try and address and help people out, because, ultimately it's an inhibitor, and it's something that's wrong, that shouldn't happen for people, and if we can do anything to help people bring it through, I think some of that comes down to believe in yourself. If you believed in yourself as an athlete, as a human being, as a person in the real world, you're so freaking awesome that you can go and do what you want to do. Yes, it's a different beast, and yes, you have to apply yourself in a different way, and maybe you have to wear, a suit or a shirt and t-shirt, and you're not running, in your shorts and vest. But so yeah, I think it's keep a positive mental attitude, speak to a lot of people, go and get advice. Don't ask them for a job necessarily, but go and get advice. And I'm happy from an SOS perspective, as we're sort of bouncing through, if anyone wants to sort of call and have a chat, or, there's potentially some internships in UK or US, just to sort of get a feel of life outside. And funnily enough, in SOS, all of the people that work for me at the moment are ex-athletes of some description, because I love that tenacity. And I love the fact that you're a blank canvas. And yes, people don't understand the fact that you haven't maybe got your marketing degree, but you've got a degree in speed. You can learn and you can train and you can adapt so much better than somebody that's been set up in a box. And plus, you've got this thing called world experience. I mean, how many other people have traveled the world? Or if it's not the world, you've traveled your country and you've seen different parts, you've experienced different cultures. You've got an understanding of race, you've got an understanding of sex, you've got as in sexism, so to speak, understanding, and this is a level playing field. And I mean, you might have an understanding of sex, that's a different sport for a different conversation, so to speak. But
I was like, look how
I know athletes have their own adventures. Yeah, literally.
Well, they do give out plenty of condoms at the Olympics, so.
No, it's definitely known for how shall I put it? It's testosterone enhancing capabilities.
There you go. For those who are listening and not watching, James has gone bright red now. He's cooling off with some SOS.
Yeah, I am. I'm rehydrating, so to speak. It's actually a clash. I haven't gone red. It's just the green t-shirt is clashing with my beautiful toned skin.
Wicked. So go ahead. You were saying, all the advantages that athletes have.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, and a lot of athletes feel that the only job for them is to go in to be a tech rep for some sports brand. And don't get me wrong, it's a cool job. Go and do it, cracking.
Or a commentator.
Or a commentator, yeah. And you've got good commentators and bad commentators, and you've got good shoe reps and bad shoe reps. And I think people need to open their eyes that actually, if they want to go and do something, you've got time to train, you've got time to retrain, you've got time to go and work. Yes, we need to survive in terms of cash, but you've got time to do a little bit of investing in your own self to learn the sort of the process. And you don't have to become a tech rep. You don't have to go into a sports company per se. If you want to go and be a lawyer, go and do your legal stuff. And I think some of it is as you're approaching the twilight of your career, obviously, if you get injured, that's a different beast. But as you're approaching the twilight of your career, just have a think start thinking, when am I going to make that transition? What do I need to do to start making that transition? And are there any qualifications I can get while I'm literally sat on my ass for 2 hours a day doing nothing because I'm recovering between sessions? During that time between sessions, go and upskill yourself. Even go and pack in a warehouse or something. It's anything to bolster that CV or resume, depending on which language
country you're in.
Yeah. But if you can make your resume or CV relate to the outside world rather than just being pro athlete, then that's cool. So if you've got a job packing, I don't know, Werther's Originals toffees or something, you've done a little bit of warehouse work. If you've gone and stood at an event or an expo and helped sell some stuff, rather than just turning up and waving and kissing like the Queen, go and spend a couple of extra hours on that expo learning more about the brand and actually try and test yourself to see if you can sell it. And founders and companies like that will appreciate the fact that the athletes are doing a little bit extra.
Yeah.
And I've got something else I want to bounce into, which is sponsorships and asking for sponsorships and being prepared. So if you don't, I'm happy to segue into that as well, because I
Yeah,
think
absolutely. I'm just
that's
sitting
a
back eating
key
my
part.
popcorn, listening to you, James. This is
Well,
very
if you want to share
intriguing.
some, I'm all good for that. So as I go on my little diatribe of adventure, so try and build a resume before you leave. If you get injured, I'm really sorry about that, and that sucks. And but again, keep a positive mental attitude. If it's to be, it's to be. If it's not, well, it's forgot, and just move on and get into the next thing and do it with the same vigor. On the sponsorship side, I probably get 5 or 10 emails a week from people asking me to sponsor. The best ones are actually people that give a what's it, in terms of they've written to me and say, hey, James, I've bought your product, or I bought your SOS. I love the berry flavor and I've used it for this. And I'd really like to talk to you about, sponsorship of some description. Unfortunately, probably 90% of athletes I've ever spoken to, and again, I was probably one of them. In fact, I'm sure I was. They come to you going, bear in mind, I'm a hydration drink. Hi, Peter. I love your energy drink, and I'm really looking for a sponsor of a bike. And I'll put you on my social media, and I'll promote you 10 times. And if you pay me $1,000, and I'm like,
Like, hang on.
brilliant, mate. Thanks. I'm not Peter. I don't have a bike. And so actually, I reply to probably 50% of those. Some of them, most of them I ignore. But sponsorship is a personal relationship. It's a one, yes, it could potentially help your performance or your cash, and asking for cash is always difficult. I probably would never ask for cash right at the beginning. I would probably set out what it is. But the key goal for companies, and especially smaller companies, big companies, maybe you'll get away with it, is one, be personal. Two, look up who the founder is or who you're talking to. Use LinkedIn, use social media, where you can find us anywhere. Find out who we are. Find some sort of bit that sort of flicks between the two of us. There's some connection. Two, try the product. Three, make sure you're talking about the product that is actually the product of the company. And four, which is nuts, don't write a cookie cutter email, because I guarantee, and I've done it, believe me, I've screwed it up in multiple occasions. You write a cookie cutter email and you send it and it's wrong, and you're instantly on the back foot. The other piece of advice is that as an athlete, it's me, and it should be. It is you. It's your athletics career. It's you're building it up and everything else. But ultimately, the company that will be sponsoring you wants something from you. So if they want something from you, they need an ROI rather than just, I'll do one post and I've got 10 likes. So give them value for money, in terms of, if you're going to make a post, tell them what the posts are going to be, what they sort of are part of, and why that's going to make them sales. Because it all comes back to, if they're going to give you, say, $1, they will at least and 1 cent back in sales or in some form of uplift. So there we go. I'll get off my little what do you call it? Is it post box or whatever? And then I'll sort of step down. But keep them coming. I love the fact that we all need to look after our athletics careers. But just make it personal, and don't be scared to get a job as well. Yes, okay, if you're at the Olympic level, then maybe not. But on the road to the Olympics, you can work a couple of hours a day. You don't need to be a full-time pro athlete all the time. And actually, it might do you more benefit than harm, because it takes your brain a craze to stop thinking about sport day in, day out, 23 and a half hours a day.
Right. That is outstanding advice. I mean, there are so many people who will benefit from that. And by the way, if anyone, it cut out a little bit, but James was saying what the sponsors are looking for is an increase of at least $1.01. So I think that initial dollar cut out, I was like, they're looking for at least 1 cent. No.
Yeah, no.
So let's dive into your business, because the world, the way it's viewed, the way it's seen, sees people like Michael Jordan, and all they have to do is walk up, hey, I'm Michael Jordan, what do you want me to sell for you? Tiger Woods, LeBron James, all those. They can just start businesses because of who they
Legends.
are, right? But
Yeah.
the you and I's of the world, if we want to start something, it's just not going to land on our lap because of who we are, the notoriety that we have as a superstar athlete. Start from the beginning, because I know you mentioned what you and your brother went through as far as dehydration was concerned. Where did it go from idea? How long did it take for idea to become like, okay, we're actually going to do this? And then once we're actually doing this, how long did it come from idea to an actual product? Tell us about that journey and what it takes, because I think that's another area where athletes don't know or have no clue how to transition into, because like you said, we're so focused on the sport, we're not necessarily in the corporate world, we're not necessarily in the business world, so we just kind of get out of this bubble of sports and land in the real world and like, okay, where do I start? Even if I have an idea, how do I get it to be a real thing?
Yep. No, good question. I asked for it for Christmas and Santa brought it. It was brilliant.
Oh my
So,
gosh, I need to
and
change my list.
yeah, I was obviously really good that year. No, it's half of it is I was working at the time in another company, and half of it was having the balls to leave the other company, because I don't think you can be an entrepreneur or do a startup unless you're fully in.
Right.
Doing it half-heartedly, maybe you can do it as you're transitioning out of running, but if you're already in a commercial world where they're expecting, the skin off your back, then so that's a big realization moment. And the realization is, and this comes back to the running, that you're going to fail more than you win. So be confident that if you think you've got a good idea, that if, and again, it comes back to how we sort of set it up. We thought we had a good idea. It was something that we would have helped us, and we knew it would help other people. So the first phase of our business, because one, having a wife as a doctor, and two, my lunatic brother, bless his cotton socks, is that we wanted something that could stand the test of no BS marketing. Because there's so many companies out here that just claim anything and do nothing. So
Right.
we after the winery, the next, well, that was a Saturday. The Monday I resigned, and we hadn't even got a product, and there was nothing. It was literally, right, I'm stupid enough. Let's go and resign, and let's go and make this happen. And we then spent the next sort of 3 months getting all the foundations of the business, which is always takes longer than you expect. It's, registering the company, thinking of domain names, thinking of brand names. You haven't even got to packaging yet. And then starting to research what you want in a product. So the first 3 months, it was sort of November to February, was basically pay a whole load of money out for everything. I knew nothing about beverage. I knew nothing about CPG, FMCG, whichever one you want to shape it.
Right.
I knew I wanted to make a product. So I partnered with a company that basically an ingredient mixing company, and a bit like some sort of, Wicked Witch of the West, I was there, bit of this, a bit of that, bit of that. But Blanca came up with the formula based off the WHO guidelines, but because that's designed to treat diarrhea and vomiting, you and I and everybody else that's listening don't have the D's and V's on a daily basis. So we wanted something that was more suited for sport. So she went to the American College of Sports Science, worked out what you lose when you sweat. And when you sweat, you lose sodium, chloride, potassium, and then citrate, and then obviously various other things. And that if you could have, for an electrolyte drink to be as effective as possible, which would be called an oral rehydration solution, you need to have 1 molecule of sugar with 1 molecule of sodium, which will speed water and electrolytes into your cells as fast as an IV drip. Activates a thing called the sodium glucose cotransport system. So very quick science segue is, if you have a sports drink that has more molecules of sugar and less molecules of sodium, with obviously the other stuff in it, the water, sugar acts as a key to your cells. Salt always follows sugar, water always follows salt. So if you have it in the correct balances, it flows beautifully into your cells, creates happy hydrated cells, and everyone's good and happy. If you've got a sports drink, salt always follows sugar. As a result, there's not enough salt in the sports drink. It's leaching the salt from your cells, which is then leaching the water from your cells. So actually you're getting dehydrated by drinking. Now you get the happy sugar rush, but you're getting dehydrated from drinking the sports drinks. If on the flip side, you're only taking a salt tablet or something like that, the salt tablet doesn't have any sugar. It means it needs to go and find sugar in your gut, start transferring itself over. So we did a whole load of science, it became a mathematical formula rather than most sports drinks. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a sprinkling in the fairy dust. We used the fairy dust at the end. And then the next phase was testing it on people. So Ben Ainsley was one of our first investors, and a guy, Scott Dixon, who's an multiple IndyCar champion, were two of our sort of first investors, as well as myself, used it to sort of test it on. There was no flavor. It was like, okay, how does it work? And then we were testing urine osmolarity against other products in SOS. And then we started adding flavor. And then you get into the adventures of packaging design and what does the customer want. And so that whole process of testing, sending it to an independent research organization, we sent it to Auckland University of Technology. The second year we sent it to Coventry University. Recently we sent it to one in America, because we want something that backs everything up. And so the first year we didn't really sell it. We gave it to pros, we tested it, we got their feedback, we tweaked it, and then the following year we came up with the actual final design, the final packaging. Let's not say final, because packaging has changed sort of every other time. It's like a new pair of jeans. It's like, oh, shiny new jeans, let's get a new pair. And that's sort of the story was born. So there's so many things you need to learn, and the best thing of learning is making mistakes. So actually that first year I fell down so many potholes. I was sort of, bruised from the sort of the chin and the neck in terms of just knocking my head either side of the metal barriers. But you then sort of get going. And then the next piece was fundraising. And fundraising, coming back to the sponsorship point of view, if you imagine you've got to do it for yourself, now you've got to do it for a company. That's a whole different kettle of fish, because it's a full-time job in itself. So you're trying to run a company, you're trying to grow some customers. At the same time, you're trying to speak to people to invest in you as a founder, but also you as your product, to then raise enough money to get it into retail and then go from there. So but the single thing that stands out is that I had none of that skill set. I'm not saying I've done a good job. I'm definitely not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I'd be an idiot if I said I was. But the running and the army helped, because you learn this sort of self-sufficiency. If you don't know an answer, you have to go and find it.
Figure it out.
And you know how to answer questions. And more importantly, you've got that doggedness that you're not going to give up unless, obviously, let's say you get injured or whatever.
Right. Well, there's competition in sports and there's competition in business. And were you ever worried about the competition in business, that maybe a bigger brand with more finances, more marketing capability would just, hey, we like James Mayo's idea. We'll have that. Is that ever a concern? And if so, how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure that your brand can survive?
I think from my, dad as my coach, and Lindsay Dunn, bless our cotton socks, because they're both passed away. Run your own race. Be aware of your competition, know who they are, but ultimately it's you on your own lane, and it's you running as fast and as well as you can, and don't let the other people interfere with you. And ultimately, if I do a good enough job, that competition might buy me out, which would be awesome. It's very different from running, where, someone doesn't buy you out from a running. Yes, they might buy your Olympic medal, but it's not the same in terms of, oh, I'll buy your Olympic medal and I'll give you a gold one. If Coca-Cola comes along and says, hey, we like you, so yes, you could go the Red Bull model of, becoming a beast in itself, or maybe it's a strategic buyout and you've made enough of a mess in terms of the market in a nice way that competition suddenly sees you as a threat, albeit you're nowhere in terms of their size, or an opportunity. It might be an opportunity rather than a threat. And as such, they pick you up and put you under your wing. And then as the founder, you're booted out. So it's sort of like, oh, thanks.
It's a bittersweet moment there.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, I'm planning on doing a 28-day fitness challenge, fitness reboot, like just to get people moving again, because there's so many people I talk to that are just kind of sitting around. And I read somewhere, I think it was on your website, that it said that SOS is as effective as an IV drip. And I like instantly got thirsty when I read that. But it got me to thinking, because hydration is one of the things I want to talk to people about as they're going through this challenge. Is this something for everyone, or is this a particular group? Is it primarily for athletes, or can anyone drink this? You know, my son's always drinking that crap. I'm trying to get him to stop drinking the other drinks, right? Full of sugar. And something like this would be good for him. But what about the everyday person? Who is it specifically for?
I suppose the easy question, or a question to your question, is do you ever get thirsty?
Hello. Yes, as soon as I
No, not
read that,
that
it's like
thirsty. Yeah, stop right there. But if you're thirsty, you're already 2% dehydrated. And
right.
everybody, I think 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. And I can replace American with British, with, South African, with, European, whatever. Most of the people just drink water. The problem with water is it hydrates you, waters your lifeblood. Most of your body's made up of water, but it doesn't do, you need electrolytes with that, and electrolytes help maintain your balance. So as a result of being, 2% dehydrated, that can lead to a loss of cognitive and physical performance. So if you think just a couple of things, people get the sort of the afternoon headache, tiredness, lethargy, general grouchiness, and just a sort of a feeling of blur before you've even, and then you've got caffeine, where you have the massive caffeine high. Caffeine's a diuretic, it dehydrates you. So let's say you've gone and indulged and had one too many, shandies, then that's a diuretic. And all of these things, basically, this is the yin to everybody's yang, if you look at it in a strange way. So by being fully hydrated, you can do more, you can be more, you can have more energy, in terms of it's a whole circular thing. So from a adult perspective, any adult should be drinking it. That's why we brought out the ready to drink version. So we've got a little happy ready to drink, and we've got a powder stick. So you can put the powder stick in
Right.
your bottles, or this is like and it's only got 10 calories. So if you think 10 calories compared to 135 calories, it's got vitamin C, D, B6, B12, folic acid, as well as magnesium and zinc. So it's immunity. And everything is done at a balance of making sure that there's no extra BS in it, in terms of it does exactly as it says
Right.
on the tin, and it hydrates you. And then which is exciting. We're bringing out, I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we're bringing out a kids version very soon, because the kids
Fantastic.
versions, exactly as you say, are full of sugar. So
Yeah.
I can't mention the name of the cartoon, but I'm super excited to say that one of the best known kids cartoons in America and UK at the moment is going to be on the face of all our kids SOS.
Oh, that's
So it'll be a low.
fantastic.
So we need a better for you thing, and we sort of discovered that when my daughter got norovirus with myself, and the thing that helped her through it was SOS. So and now living here in Scottsdale, those that don't know Scottsdale, it's like living in a permanent year-round dry sauna. It gets up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 odd degrees centigrade in the summer. Dehydration is just an everyday part of life. And my daughters go to school with their little stick of SOS in the water bottle, and they're all really good.
That's fantastic, because honestly, these days, and we both know there's so many kids that have diabetes and things like that that they really have no business having. It's just there's so much sugar in everything we have, like, and with the sports, they're given, like you said, these sports drinks that are full of sugar, and I see little kids walking around with Coke and whatever else. Like, we've got to find ways to kind of remove that and give them something nutritious. So that's really exciting to know that true.
Thank you.
By the way, you put that bottle up to the screen. You're so lucky I could not reach through the screen, because I almost grabbed it and ran off. I'm like, give us a sip,
Well, I'll
will you?
send you some afterwards. I'll hydrate you and your family afterwards.
Fantastic, because we some thirsty people around here. So
That be
where
your.
where are things at, James? Where are things at with business now? Like what stage are you at? Are you I see, like you said, you've got this deal going with the cartoon for the kids. But is there anything else in the works? Have you got any funding events going on? Have you got any other major events coming up? To anything happening in the pipes?
Yeah. So we've got CVS. We're national as of next week, or sort of the beginning of May. We'll be in every single CVS across the states,
Wow,
which is pretty cool.
congratulations. Yeah.
Both the powder and in a fifth of them, the ready to drink. And then we're in all the Walmart supercenters across the states and select Whole Foods and Kroger's around. So from a retail perspective, last year and very recently was just mega growth in terms of getting the brand into stores. And we're really driving the online sort of part as well. So that's fun. We are available also in Australia and New Zealand and the UK. So, you know, if you look at the soshydration.com website, wherever you are in the world, it will sort of pull it up and take you through to where it is. But no, it's last year was a real breakout year. This year, it's a case of yes, we will be doing some fundraising. Make sure when I send the letters, I don't ask that they're an energy drink or something. And I'm excited to see where it takes it because the public is getting more and more aware that there is actually a need for electrolytes and there's a need for hydration rather than just water or sports drinks. So the future is bright. The future is, well, SOS, I suppose, rather than the
There
other
you go.
thing, which used to be one of the TV commercials.
Right. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. So what I've picked up from you, so from this, I mean, amongst many things are, it's important to really get yourself in pole position before you leave your sport or whatever it is that you're doing, to maintain a positive attitude, to not expect to know everything before you start doing it. There's some things you're going to have to learn as you go. You won't always do everything perfectly, but that doesn't mean that's a reason to quit or give up on your own idea. Don't worry about competition. Don't let that be a reason for you not to pursue your goals. Just figure out and appreciate that you have your own lane. But also, if you're an athlete, recognize that your awesomeness that you have as an athlete does transfer to the real quote unquote world, the real world or life outside of sports. And I think all of that is absolutely amazing. So, do you have any final words that you'd like to offer people or athletes in terms of your philosophy and your thoughts on life and being successful in general?
Well, I didn't need to speak for 20 minutes because you summed that up in what, 1 minute, 30 seconds of beautifulness. So it's sort of like, there's my hat, I'll take it off. So look, if you want something, go and do it. The hardest part of doing anything is the actual starting out to do it. So and failure is okay. Accept the fact you're going to fail because you'll be successful at something. And if you've already been successful in your sport, you can be successful in life outside of sport. And for those of you who are still in your sport, blooming good luck in your adventures, your trials, your tribulations. May it lead to victory circle, as they say in the States. And, if you've got an opportunity, give SOS a try.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, James. If anyone should so wish, anyone out there is thirsty or they are not wanting to get thirsty, how do they get in touch with you or follow you? Maybe they took some advice on how to ask for a sponsorship, or they just want to see what's going on with SOS, see what's going on with you. Is there a way to follow you, connect with you, research you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. The SOS website's soshydration.com, and that's the same tag for Instagram and Facebook and everything else. And my tag is James Mayo 1 for Instagram. Just find me on Instagram, drop me a direct message, or find me on LinkedIn, which is obviously James Mayo. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, this may officially be my last thirsty day. Thank God for James Mayo. James, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks,
You're a
Tasha.
real blast to talk to and definitely amazing to listen to. I'm going to have to rewatch this with even more popcorn, but not the salty kind.
No, it's beautiful talking to you. Thank you very much, Tasha.
Thanks so much. Ciao for now, James. Have a great one.
Bye. Thank you.
Whoa, guys, fantastic. I love everything you had to say. I mean, it is just so important, the hydration factor, not just for athletes, but for people in general. They have no idea because it doesn't affect us as much, in ways that we understand. We don't do the proper hydration that we need as everyday people or even sports people. And so all these things that are happening to us as a result, we just think it's normal. We just think, hey, this is, I'm supposed to have headaches, or everybody gets migraines, or everyone gets the afternoon slump. Well, that is actually not factual when we are taking care of ourselves in the way that we need to. So I am so pleased that we had the opportunity to talk on this subject. Remember to like, share, follow, do all that you have to do, because there is a movement going on behind all of these interviews to help athletes really thrive before, during, and after sports. So go to www.globalsportschannel.com. And you can also go to www.loveathletes.com to find out more. And don't forget to check out SOS, because I know y'all's thirsty. All right. That's all from me. Bye for now.